New questions about whether the federal government would shut down on Saturday.
And with the clock ticking, the political battle lines are being drawn tonight in Congress. KCAL 9 political reporter Bryan joins us now with the political brinksmanship amid a fight to keep the government open. Dave.
That's right, and a lot of issues surrounding that tonight as well. There are also new questions tonight about whether states like California and New York, which didn't vote for President Trump, are being singled out for harsh treatment in the Trump tax reform package. More on that in a moment. But first, the latest on a possible government shutdown coming up fast. Only 24 hours before President Trump hits 100 days in office, the threat of a government shutdown is back.
The Democrats at the last minute have come in and thrown a lot of monkey wrenches into the ability for this to get done, despite the president doing everything that he can to show good faith to keep this going. So it's not just a question of they keep moving the goalpost.
The president raged on Twitter as families prepare for summer vacations in our national parks. Democrats threaten to close them and shut down the government. Terrible. Republican leaders in Congress say they're nearly ready to pass a spending bill to keep the government open.
I would be shocked that they would want to see a government shutdown, that the Democrats would want to do that.
But Democrats insist they won't cooperate with any GOP efforts to pass a spending bill if Republicans try once again to repeal and replace Obamacare. House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer said in a statement, if Republicans announce their intention to bring their harmful Trump care bill to the House floor tomorrow or Saturday, I will oppose a one-week continuing resolution and will advise House Democrats to oppose it as well. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi from San Francisco said this about the new push to repeal and replace Obamacare.
What you see in the GOP haste to pass the bill and Trump trying to cram it down in the last 100 days, I think President Trump is really making fools of the members of Congress of his own party. He's asking them to vote for a bill that is wildly unpopular in the country, is the wrong thing to do first and foremost, is going to be doo-doo stuck to their shoe for a long time to come.
The sudden return of shutdown drama is rolling down the tracks now, threatening to crush White House efforts to celebrate their 100 days achievements. Just a few days ago, Press Secretary Sean Spicer was insisting the government would remain open. The latest version of the Republican response to Obamacare is similar to the last one in many respects, but it also includes an amendment with some significant changes. It would let states apply for waivers that could weaken several key Obamacare insurance reforms, including the price protections in place for those with pre-existing conditions, what benefits insurers must cover in their policies, and the ban on allowing carriers to charge more based on a person's health background.
My one and only goal in this has been to try to make this bill something that helps the health insurance market survive.
But all eyes are now on the party's moderates, who are far from supporting the amendment, arguing it could leave even more people without coverage.
It doesn't help the people I represent. And people with pre-existing conditions, you're right, we can't deny them coverage.
Then there are the questions about the president's tax reform plan and just how far it goes to relieve middle-income Americans, a question top officials are struggling to answer.
Can you guarantee that no one in the middle class is going to pay more?
That's our objective, absolutely.
Is it a guarantee?
I can't make any guarantees until this thing is done and on the president's desk.
One problem for many middle-income families could be the Trump tax reform plan, as currently presented, would eliminate the deduction for state taxes paid. CPA and Valley College professor of accounting Howard Levine says in a state with high income tax like California, that could really hurt.
The state income tax for many people would have a very significant impact on their taxes. For example, if they're in the, say, 25% bracket, and they deduct, say, $4,000, which is about the average for that bracket, that just costs that person $1,100.
Congressman Brad Sherman, who's also a CPA, a tax lawyer, and the former head of the State Board of Equalization, told me in a FaceTime interview Thursday evening the elimination of the state tax deduction could have significant impact on California.
Theorists will tell you that the effect of this will be to put a lot of pressure to reduce state programs and to reduce the level of the state income tax. People will be upset about paying that state income tax if they can't deduct it on their federal return, and that could impact our roads. It could impact UCLA and the other UC campuses, et cetera. So this is not a friendly move toward California.
Well, the next 24 hours could go a long way toward defining the Trump administration and the Congress he's dealing with. There are still a lot of moving parts tonight, and one way or another, we should know tomorrow night at about this time where they're heading. A fitting climax for the first 100 wild and woolly days. Wouldn't you say, Jeff, Lena?
For sure, Dave. Thank you.